Alliance, and I'm your host, Paul Ira. This morning we have for guests Deidre Radford, Stan Hannell, and Annette Bubeck. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We're going to start out and talk to Deidre a little bit about her background. She works for Bombard Electric and works in the renewable energy area for that. Deidre, tell us a little bit about your job and your responsibilities and what you do.
Well, I worked with Bombard for about 10 years. Bombard Renewable Energy, which is of course the renewable energy division of Bombard Electric, LLC. Bombard Electric has been here in Nevada for over 35 years as a major electrical contractor. And when we opened our renewable energy division, that kind of allowed us to start doing solar on a larger scale. And we ended up building, of course, the Nellis Air Force Base installation back in 2007. And we've been cranking ever since. And we do a lot of residential and smaller commercial work as well. Over the last year, we've done about 150 megawatts of solar in the state.
That's a lot of megawatts.
Yeah, and then this year we're hoping to do about 250 megawatts in the state. So solar is alive and well in Nevada.
So give us a little perspective, a metric, if you will. What's a megawatt?
Well, a megawatt is 1,000 kilowatts. So that's a lot of kilowatts. And a typical house requires about 5 kilowatts. So if you just multiply that out, that's a lot of solar panels. So for instance, we just did an installation out in Pahrump, Nevada for a different power company, Valley Electric Association. That particular installation, 17.5 megawatts. It was over 15,000 solar panels.
Oh my gosh.
So
and where was that?
That's out in Pahrump.
Okay.
And it's the largest community solar project in the United States.
Over the hump in Pahrump.
That's right, over the hump in Pahrump. It's pretty green out there.
Nice,
Yeah.
nice. Good to know. I always like to talk about why we got into this business. How did you get into this business? What's your background? Why are you drawn to the energy business?
Well, I've always sort of been very interested in environmental issues. Before I started work in this industry, I was volunteering as just a volunteer at the Solar NV, which is our local American Solar Energy Society chapter. I was helping Steve Ripka over there coordinate one of the very first solar home tours that we had in Las Vegas. And that was over 10 years ago. And I just was really interested in trying to create a more environmentally friendly way to do energy. And I've always been very concerned with these types of issues, so it made sense. I volunteered, I worked hard, and then I said, you know what, I want to make this my life because it's important to me to
Wow.
leave a sustainable planet, sustainable ecosystems for future generations. And so our move from fossil fuels to renewable energy is going to make that possible.
Well, that's great. And so did you pick solar right from the beginning, or did you
Yeah.
move around? So you
Yeah,
picked solar
I mean,
right away.
I was looking around, I'm like, you know what, we have a lot of sunshine here
I've
where I
noticed
live.
that.
This seems like a good fit.
So that's your background. Tell us a little bit about current policies for rooftop solar in Southern Nevada.
So current policies for rooftop solar, and that typically refers to, of course, small commercial jobs, which we consider smaller rooftops, and of course residential rooftops installations as well. Before last year, we had a cap that was set in place by the Nevada legislature. 3% could go solar, and
3% of what?
NV Energy customers.
NV Energy customers.
Okay.
Yeah, and so that cap was met, and so because we didn't have a raise in the cap, that was it. That was as much net metered solar as could go in. Of course, the legislature, what they did was they left it up to the Public Utilities Commission to decide, the regulators to decide, and they actually did come up with a pretty great compromise. And when the compromise was, let's continue net metering. In fact, let's remove the cap entirely from net metering. And that's what they did. Now they changed the structure of net metering to where, energy that goes back to the grid, you get like a penny less for that, for like the next couple of years, and then it goes down from there. But it's still great. The return on investment for a residential solar power system It only went up like maybe by like 1 year, 1.5 years maybe, for return on investment if you purchase a system outright. So, you know, before the new net metering went into place, the return on investment for a typical solar power system was between 6 and 8 years. Now it's between 7 and 9 years. But when I first started out in this business 10 years ago, the return on investment for solar power system was about 25 years. So by comparison, you know, from my perspective, investing in a solar power system is a wonderful idea.
Well, to give a little perspective on cost, when I first started working in Nevada in 2005, solar panels cost, just the panel, $12 a watt.
Right.
And now we're buying panels for somewhere around $1, $1.10, $1.20 a watt. So that has come down considerably. So the cost has changed a lot.
Yeah.
Let's go back a little bit about where was net metering back during the 3% cap, and give us a scenario of pricing. So if I had 5 kilowatts of solar on my house and I was generating at full capacity, how much was I generating? How much was I selling back to NV Energy? How much was I buying, and what was it costing?
Okay, so for a typical, say, 1,700 square foot house, let's say, that's a pretty typical size home in Nevada. A typical system would produce about 11,000 kilowatt hours per year, and that's about a 5 kilowatt system AC. So that's about 6 kilowatt system. That's a 6 kilowatt system DC. That particular system last year would probably cost somewhere between $25,000 and $30,000, depending on the parameters of the installation. Of course, there's a huge 30% federal income tax credit on that installation, which is a huge incentive. I mean, that's I don't know if you get a better incentive anywhere for anything, especially on that kind of investment.
Sure.
And so for that, and it was about between 6 and 8 years return on investment. Today, the cost for that same system has dropped by a couple of $1,000s, and the return on investment went up a little bit because of the changes in net metering, but the return on investment for that same system is still between 7 and 9 years.
And what were we selling our excess power back to NV Energy, and what were we paying for power?
So if you had a solar power system and you're grandfathered into the old net metering, which existed last year, then you get almost 1-for-1 credit for power that you send back to the grid. So
is that like 10 cents a kWh?
Yeah, about 11 cents per kilowatt hour.
So you would pay 11 to NV Energy at night when you were buying, and you were selling to them at 10 when you were selling?
Yeah. Well, a little bit more than that, but yeah, it's almost a 1-for-1.
Okay.
So then the net metering changed. So now you pay a little bit less for power if you have solar. So you pay 10 cents a kilowatt hour if you have solar, but you get a credit of about 9 cents for energy that you send back to the grid. So now it's a little bit less, but it's so insignificant that it's just still such a really great deal. I have some clients that just moved here from Hawaii. In Hawaii, they don't get anything for kilowatt hours that they send back to the grid.
They don't.
Nothing. So that's the new net metering in Hawaii. So from my perspective and from theirs, they couldn't wait to get a solar power system here. So, yeah.
Okay. Well, it's a great place to have solar, like you said. It is the mecca for sun here in Nevada. So residential solar then is alive and well. It's still a good deal. Everyone that can afford it, maybe it's a point that everyone can afford it, should be looking at it. And when we come back, we're going to talk about how do you get a hold of a solar power installer and talk through this to find out what is good for your home. And we'll be right back.